Hey readers, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Paloma, and today's video is going to be the rapid fire book tag. So let's get started. So I was tagged by Jackie, also known as the Reading Wordsmith here on YouTube, and I'm going to leave a link to her video down below so you can check that out as well. So the first question is ebook or physical book? I want to say I typically only read physical books. There have been a few times that I've read ebooks. Of my ebooks, I'm currently reading The Wheel of Time because I'm watching the show right now on Amazon, and I'm not really a fantasy person, but that show is really well done. So I personally recommend not only the show, but the book as well. I'm kind of only on chapter 1 because when it comes to e-readers, I read a little bit slower, only because I get distracted by the notifications. I know I could put my iPad on D&D, but I don't know. For one thing, I am a Samsung girly, so I have trouble with my iPad sometimes because of the Apple interface. The next question is paperback or hardcover. I would have to say most of the books in my collection are paperback. I do have a few hardcover books, but that's only because I was hard-pressed to find a paperback version. I know for certain my Queen Charlotte book from the Bridgerton series, that one was mainly, I could only find a hardcover only because it had just been released, so they didn't have the paperback version, and I honestly couldn't wait, and I really wanted the book that bad that I got in hardcover. But yeah, to be honest, I don't really do hardcovers. I think it's easier for me to carry a paperback if I decide to take it to like the bookstore or the library or to school or things like that. Depending on the size of the book, it's easier to fit it in my bag. And so the next question is trilogy or series. That's a kind of a hard question because I haven't really read a trilogy or even a series in a very long time. I mostly read them when I was in middle school. The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, Percy Jackson. Yeah, because I read mostly historical fiction. I know there's historical fiction trilogies and series, as the Davenport's book that I recently read has shown, but really and truly, most of the historical fiction books that I read kind of just are that one book. So it's a hard question because I'm not really versed in trilogy or series. If this question was asked to me in middle school, I would probably say series because I loved the Maze Runner series like bad. I devoured those books and I devoured the movies as well. I would also say the Percy Jackson series, I stopped at maybe book 4. I have the book here. Yeah, for the Percy Jackson series, I stopped at book 4, which is the Battle of the Labyrinth. So I think if I was to get back into a trilogy or a series, it would really have to pique my attention, like those books. So if you have any recommendations on trilogies or series that you think are just as good as those, please leave them in the comments below and I will definitely check them out. Heroes or villains? I know a lot of people say they like the gray villain, where like they're a villain but they have like a heart of gold. I have to say hero. I really love a hero. I think, and this is where it turns into like the gray villain, because you have the hero, but I like when a hero kind of understands the reality that they're living in, that while they're on this quest, all the danger and everything like that, you know, has consequences, and their actions also have consequences. So the next question is a book everyone should read. A book I think everyone should read, in a perfect world, it would be The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. That's my personal favorite book of all time, and I've mentioned it in a video before. But if I had to be honest, in the way that everybody would read it would probably be... This is one of those questions where you have to separate it. You'd be like, my favorite... a book you would recommend if you like fantasy, if you like sci-fi, or if you like any other kind of genre. I think because I mostly read historical fiction, I think a book I would recommend in that genre would be It's a tie between The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead and Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Those are probably the two books that I would recommend everyone should read. Special mention would be Homegoing by Ya Jesse. And you know what? I'll throw in Native Son by Richard Wright. I think that's also a really good book. So the next question is to recommend an underrated book. An underrated book. Maybe an underrated book. This an underrated book in my collection is kind of crazy because I mostly read the classics, so they're not underrated at all. Maybe Giant by Edna Ferber. Based on my own experience, I don't think I've seen a lot of people talk about it. Even the movie, I don't see a lot of people talk about it. I think because it was written so long ago and the movie came out so long ago, probably during around, I don't want to say the golden age of Hollywood, just a little bit after that. Not many people might know about it, so maybe. So the next question is the last book you finished, and that's actually a book I'm going to do a review on. It's Zora Neale Hurston's Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick. I enjoy this way more than I thought I would. I'm going to say that in the video, and I'm going to go into detail why. It's such a great book. It's a collection of short stories that apparently had never been published before. The next question is the weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark. Arguably, the thing about me is I love to use a bookmark. I had to stop myself from buying bookmarks every time I went to the bookstore, every time I bought a new book, because I was like, oh, I want this bookmark to fit the theme of the book. And I actually have several. I have several of them. Every book I read kind of generally has to follow like the theme of these bookmarks. I think the closest thing I would say to a weird thing I've used is probably a receipt. I personally don't like to dog ear my books. I don't like the way that it looks on my shelf. It's not appealing, so I have to have a bookmark. I'm very rigid with it, like it has to be a bookmark. So the next question is used books, yes or no? I am 100% here for a used book. Some of the books in my collection are actually books from my mother or my grandmother. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran was actually a gift from my great-grandfather to my grandmother, and then she passed it down to me. So I personally really love used books, especially if it has a history like that one. But I mean, really and truly, I think it's better than, printing out the same books every year just with a different cover. I think it's perfectly fine for you to go to like a thrift store or even go on like eBay and see if somebody has that book already and they just want it at their house. Sure, it might have some wear and tear, but if the pages are legible, then there's really no issue with it. I recently got a copy of The Enchanted April, and it was a used copy. I did not know how used it was going to be, but it hasn't impeded me from reading the book, so I personally recommend a used book. The next question is my top 3 favorite genres. I talk about it all the time. I love historical fiction. I do love sci-fi, and I do like romance. Maybe mostly historical romance. I don't know if I could ever read a modern romance. I don't want to read that you have a telephone or that you liked his photo on Instagram. I live that reality. The next question is borrow or buy. That one is like half and half for me. I do like to borrow books. I've borrowed some books from my mother and I've borrowed some books from friends, but I do like having the option to buy it and have it just be personally mine. Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm 50-50 on that one. If you have the opportunity to borrow a book, I say go for it. I actually gave a coworker of mine my copy of War and Peace, and I've never seen it since, but it's on a completely different journey, and that's fine with me. I can buy another copy. So the next question is character or plot. That is a really hard one. If the plot is good enough, I think I can forgive bad characters. So an example of bad character, good plot for me is Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. To be honest, I don't like the book, but I was very interested in the journey the character went through, but I just really hated the character. And I hope my best friend is now watching this because she actually loves that book, and we disagree on it all the time every time we talk about it, because she felt something with that character and I felt nothing for him. And I was like, I don't know how to feel about it. I really didn't care for it, but I do love a novel where a character is probably it's just like one day in a city or whatever, or like when they do TV shows about that. I like that. So the next question is long or short chapters. I think it depends on the book and or the genre. The current book I'm reading, which is The Enchanted April, the chapters are very short, so it's kind of easy to breeze through it. I think for the book itself, I think it's fine, but I think I would prefer a long chapter if it's relevant to the story. I think The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang had a couple of long chapters, but she was explaining the world of the Poppy War, so I kind of didn't hate it as much. I think if she had cut it too short, the story would have got a bit muddled somewhere. So I think it really depends on the book itself and what the author's trying to do with the story and the characters. Name the first 3 books you think of. The first book that comes to mind is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And because it's staring right at me, Matrix by Lauren Groff. I kind of cheated with that one, with the last one, but yeah, those are the first 3 books that I could think of, all books that I would recommend. The latest book I've bought, so I recently bought 3 books. The first one is The Wheel of Time, the first book, on my iPad. The second one is Tender is the Flesh, and then it's the Penguin Classics Korean short stories. I've heard good things about Tender is the Flesh. I am a little bit scared of the plot, but if everyone says it's as good as it is, I will take it. I will do my best to muscle through it, and then I can't wait to read the Korean short stories. I think it's going to be really great. The next question is books that made me laugh or cry. I don't really cry at books, and I don't really laugh at books either. Maybe the last book to make me cry was The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Yeah, that was a really tough story to get through. Last book that made me laugh. Maybe it was The Wheel of Time, because it's the beginning of the book before the actual journey happens. We're kind of figuring out who the characters are, their role in the story, and they're so young when the book starts out, so they're very childish. So maybe that's a book that made me laugh. Actually, you know what? I'll say Queen Charlotte. I think there was a couple of times where I laughed and cried. That last page made me like tear up. So the next question is our world or the fictional world? Fictional world, 100%. Well, I do think our world has potential, but as of right now, I'm going to take the fictional world, especially if I could design it the way that I want. I think that would be pretty good. So audiobooks, yes or no is the next question. I'm going to have to say no. I personally have never finished an audiobook. I'm going to say that. I've started audiobooks and then I've never finished it. I don't know. I know people like to put the audiobooks when they're like cooking or they're cleaning or even just going on like a drive. When someone talks to me, I laser focused on what they're saying to me, so I can't really pay attention. I don't know. If there's a really good audiobook that you recommend that you think I should just try, let me know. I will take that chance and see if it sticks. I've tried to do the podcast. I've tried to do the podcast stories, and again, even if the story is like so good, I can't sit through it. I don't know what it is. I physically need a book in my hand. And I do think some people do that, where they'll have the physical book and then they'll also listen to it on the audiobook as well. Maybe that's something I could try, but arguably it's gonna be a no to audiobooks. So the next question is have you ever bought a book based on its cover? 100%. I know the famous quote is to never judge a book by its cover, but I am one of those people that will judge a book by its cover, especially if it kind of has no relevance to the book itself. I do think sometimes when publishers hire artists to create the covers, there's maybe like a bit of disconnect with what the story is about and what the cover is. But for the most part, most of the books that I've bought, the covers have been fine so far. The ones that I probably don't like the most is when they make a TV or movie adaptation of it and they take the promotional image from that TV show or movie and slap it onto the cover. I really don't like that, and I do not like the, as seen on Netflix, like unremovable sticker that's on the book. I cannot stand that, and I will not buy that book. I think I will go on eBay and try to find a different version. I will go and find the European version if I have to, because I hate that so much. I think it's so tacky, it's so gross. So the next question is book to movie or book to TV? Once again, it depends on what the story is. There's been a lot of book to movie adaptations that have really worked. I think I would say probably the one that I know the most is the Hunger Games trilogy. I think that was a really great book to movie adaptation. And even the prequels, I didn't read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so I can't really compare the two, but I did like the movie, so I thought Rachel Zegler was great. But I think there are some instances where a book to TV adaptation would work better. An example I can give is The Terror, which was on AMC. I think it did a great job of fleshing out the characters as they had been fleshed out in the book. I think if it had been done as a movie, it would have been far too quick, and there wouldn't have been any kind of gravity of their situation, because not only are they in the wilderness, but there's also some type of spiritual beast out there that's kind of haunting them. And yeah, I don't think it would have done well in a movie, so I'm very thankful that it came out in a TV show, and that TV show is actually what made me purchase the book. In a similar sense, Giant by Edna Ferber, I recommend this all the time, or I talk about it all the time. Giant by Edna Ferber, I think, did very well as a movie, and I think it should only stay as a movie. I don't think there's any need to adapt it into a TV show, because the movie that they did with Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, and James Dean did what it needed to do. Obviously, because I read the book after the movie, I see the parts that they left out, and I see why. I do think if the runtime had been a little bit longer, they could have added those little characteristics that would have really made the characters who they are. But I love it no matter what, so maybe I have my heart goggles on, and I think that was a perfect movie adaptation. So the next question is movie or TV show that you prefer to the book. It's The Terror by Dan Simmons. I think AMC did a really great job with adapting the book. I think you could really, and the actors did such a great job as well, the costume design, everything. And I think what I liked the most about it is that they turned it into an anthology series. So season 2 was about Japanese internment camps during like World War II, and kind of the spiritual I don't want to say boogeyman, but there was a spiritual element to it where it was kind of haunting the internment camp. And I can't wait for season 3 if it ever comes out. AMC, if you're listening to me, please give me season 3 now. But that's the first book that comes to mind with a TV adaptation that really kind of almost superseded the book. So the next question is series or standalone. I think this kind of goes back to the question about trilogies or series. I prefer a standalone. I've actually started a couple of series and then I kind of just drop it after the first book. The ones that come to mind is the Poppy War and then the Davenports. Both are part of a series of books. And for me, one is enough. I think I'm so used to reading standalones that it's kind of hard pressed for me to really get back into a series. Maybe the Wheel of Time will change that for me because I've started it and I'm kind of enjoying the world building for now, but we'll see how it is at the end of the book if it captures my attention enough. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with standalone for this one. So that was the last question, and so I'm gonna tag Lex Reads to do this challenge as well. And if you're watching this video, please feel free to do this tag as well. When I first started my booktube channel, nobody tagged me in the booktuber challenge. I just did that myself. So if you feel so inclined to, I say do this video as well, and I hope to see your answers. If you do the video, please tag me in it. I 100% want to see it, and I want to see your answers as well. So that's it for this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!